2008's The Wrestler stars Mickey Rourke as Randy the Ram, a self-destructive wrestler who's past his prime. The movie and Rourke's performance were critically acclaimed, but is it a great film or just depressing? Feel free to like and subscribe, and let's find out. The film, to the casual wrestling fan it seems, is directly inspired by the 1999 wrestling expose documentary Beyond the Mat, specifically fallen WWF superstar Jake the Snake Roberts' appearance. To the casual moviegoer, the film's main appeal is the fallen 80s movie star Mickey Rourke in his best post-prime performance, earning him BAFTA and Golden Globe awards, not to mention an Oscar nomination.
Aronofsky gave me a second chance after up my career for 15 years.
The film's camcorder realism style gives it a gritty, non-satirical mockumentary feel that makes you look at the wrestler as you would About Schmidt or American Honey. This movie is depicting the actual lived-in America, warts and all, not the cinematic America of hopes and dreams, which is in direct juxtaposition to the opening title's implied former glory days of Randy the Ram. Late 80s, early 90s WWF, this ain't. Which I'm afraid to say is just as depressing as it is to see Mickey Rourke go from 9.5 weeks mysterious and edgy lover man to plastic surgery tainted has-been. It's depressing to see a character who it's implied was an Ultimate Warrior / Hulk Hogan caliber wrestling superstar reduced to ECW type shock value barbed wire bottom of the barrel trash wrestling at an advanced stage in his life with failing health and no close family to support him.
What'd you think of The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke?
It just so depressed me.
Is this depressing to people like Jim Cornette or even myself? Well, of course it is, and let's just say for the sake of argument it is depressing, at least to the casual wrestling fan. Well, that's only understandable when you think of what wrestling was back in the 90s. It's not Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior in 1990. It's not The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at various points. It's not Ric Flair versus Sting.
Sting clotheslines him back inside the ring.
Or Bret the Hitman Hart versus the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels. It's not even Mickey Rourke in 9.5 weeks eating various food types off a prime Kim Basinger's sensual anatomy. I mean, Jesus H. Christ. For a moment, can we just focus on why people even like this wrestling stuff in the first place? Speaking purely from an anecdotal perspective, as a first generation millennial that moved from the UK to the United States in 1990, the only sports show I'd ever known is Bloody Grandstand.
Later this afternoon in the 100 meters butterfly.
Boring! Then suddenly, enter America. You now have sports entertainment wrestling. This was anything but boring. The dynamism of the absurd. The grown men behaving like overconfident 11-year-olds.
If you're 5 years old or 50 years old, learn to like it!
With better vocabularies and physiques.
In my own articulate way, we have amassed the true powers of professional wrestling.
Now let's look at this from a Mickey Rourke perspective. The reason why it could be seen as depressing gets transcended when you have a has-been actor from the 80s playing a role that resonates with his own life trajectory. I.e., the film is rooted in reality, to the point it's the human story that supersedes the fact it's not a delicious fantasy. I mean, first off, his relationship, or lack thereof, with Marissa Tomei's stripper with a heart of gold, thwarting off his efforts at pulling her with her I need to install boundaries sign language.
You're a customer, okay? You're a f***ing customer. I don't go out with customers.
The audience, if old enough, knows if this was 9.5 weeks Mickey, there'd be no "the rules are I don't date punters." What? If this was the old Mickey, he'd be eating eggs Benedict off her bloody belly button and blueberry pancakes off her bum bum. Instead, he's orbiting a sex worker who doesn't want to have sex. It's like, dude, if you're gonna pay directly, at least go to a brass. You can shag the brass. What can you do with this 40-something pole dancer who just wants to friend zone you?
I think you're awesome. I think that you're a great guy.
The best he can do is milk some residual clout.
No, I know who you are.
To have a rebound quickie in the bog with Big Betsy. But that's the whole point. He feels entitled to Paul Tomei, but can't, on the strength of who he once was and not who he currently is, which is the Mickey Rourke story. He destroyed himself professionally and physically, but still thinks he's the old Mickey Rourke.
How can you sleep next to that flabby, fat piece of shit?
True that, brother, but have you looked in the mirror lately angry because Lord Donald overcharged him for the damage him and Tupac done at one of Don Don's hotels. It's like, moron, why were you wrecking hotels in the first place? Tupac was a kid, but what's your excuse? You were already in your 40s. Oh, it wasn't his fault, he's got, arrested development. When he grew up, his childhood was traumatic. Arrested development, get real. Back to the Randy the Ram character in The Wrestler. Having a dude who's both a big kid and self-destructive play the Ram makes this character that much more believable and sincere that the story of his own self-destruction grabs you in. Whatever trauma he incurred as a child, he's passed down to a daughter he never got to know or be a part of her own childhood.
Who the f were you when I needed you to take care of me?
Inspired by real-life Jake the Snake's story, the story of generational trauma is one that's universally relatable as much as it may be depressing. Yes, it's uninspiring, he can't pull the chick at command and have hot animal sex at the click of his fingers like some millennial streaming show fantasy. But the heartbreaking sincerity of his own downhill trajectory is one of those unique, infrequent films that stand out from the rest. Also, on a realism note, having the character of Randy the Ram's old in-ring adversary, the Ayatollah, waving an Iranian flag whilst appearing to be an African American is an interesting composite and heightened inspiration from real-life 80s wrestlers Abdullah the Butcher and the Iron Sheik.
The Iron Sheik from Tehran, Iran.
Juxtaposed with the Doctor who tends to Rourke be an actual Persian.
Randy Dr. Moedizadeh.
Highlights the realism of reality versus the absurdity of professional wrestling's history of exploiting America's political turmoil and whipping up xenophobic sentiments throughout the years.
Treat them like the capitalist pigs that they are.
You American piece of garbage.
Salam alaikum. Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
You support an evil and unjust war. I support America.
Is The Wrestler depressing? In part. But it isn't as simple as that. I can see why it would be to longtime wrestling personality Jim Cornette, who isn't just a typical American showbiz opportunist, he's a true believer. The film shows the profession at its low points and only implies its high points. It's like asking Cornette, is wrestling real or fake?
There's nothing fake about it.
To him it isn't, and to me it's more than just a yes or no answer, it's the American dream. You can be whoever you want to be, from wherever you want to be from. Who becomes the champion can be choreographed on the basis of who the fans deem to be the most appealing, rather than who happens to win on the day. To this video's question, the symbolism in the ending says it all. It's depressing that Rourke's character has to find solace in his alter ego character, Randy the Ram Robinson, and can't face his true self, Robin Ramzinski, the dude at the deli counter.
Just wear the thing, alright?
Coming up. Down and out. Come on, come on, come on.
To go from a star to that is hardly the opposite of a downer. In the end, he goes back to wrestling against the Ayatollah in a retro nostalgia match, not a bottom of the barrel barbed wire spectacle. Despite Tomei having a romantic change of heart after Rourke shows a bit of residual moxie.
What's the matter? You gonna refuse to pay a customer? What a goddamn dance, sweetheart.
You.
I'm here. I'm really here.
The Ram chooses the ring over romance at the risk of his own health and safety and possibly his own life. He goes back to doing what he does best. The point, on an optimistic level, is he's deemed as still valuable in the nostalgic mind of the aging fans and worth saving in the mind of Tomei, even if his own daughter wants nothing to do with him.
I don't ever want to see you again.
Here's the core point, folks. Being deemed as worth saving and valuable despite hitting rock bottom is absolutely not depressing and absolutely is inspiring. Whether he has a heart attack in the ring or the next day is secondary to this point. If the Ram is seen as too far habituated to self-destruction to be saved,
Get out.
The world don't give a shit about me.
in practical terms, his soul is worth saving.
I'm here. I'm really here.
If the wrestler is the spiritual successor to Beyond the Mat, then the resurrection of Jake the Snake is the spiritual successor to the wrestler. Thus, the resurrection of Jake the Snake depicts the difficult but worthwhile struggle of saving the irreversibly broken ex-wrestler Jake the Snake Roberts, the main source of inspiration for Mickey Rourke's character Randy the Ram. The character arc and human story of resurrecting one's soul may seem depressing at a glance. In closing, is not depressing but inspirational. The Wrestler stands overall as a unique masterpiece that touches you through its sincerity and humanity rather than hopium and razzmatazz. If you made it this far, well, thank you very much. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.